Hello and welcome to another live stream of the Strettycast. This will go out on Spotify and Apple Podcasts later on, but for now you can watch us live on YouTube, Facebook and on Periscope. So last night Manchester United got the result that they craved, progress in the Europa League. I'm joined by Mike. Performance-wise, Mike, we didn't really get going in the first half. It took us a while. It was like the first leg really at Old Trafford, but eventually we got over the line and defensively, we didn't have too much to deal with, but the back four dealt with everything, and so did Henderson.
Yeah, it was night and day that if it was to United in the second half to the first half. United in the first half were very poor, and Milan started to apply a lot of pressure towards the end of that half, and I was getting really worried about what was happening because United just seemed to be dropping deeper and deeper and deeper and retreating into their own box. But Pogba's impact coming on as a half-time substitute, I asked you before the game, I was like, how fit is he? Because we hadn't seen sight and sound of him for 6 weeks or something like that. And he just made all the difference in the world. United went at Milan early to try and push and get a goal and then put the pressure back onto Milan. That was the key for United. If United could score first, then it pretty much cancels out the advantage that Milan had gained for the first leg. And suddenly the ball is then put into United's court and we're back in the driver's seat. I thought the defence was excellent. Obviously, Milan, for a substantial portion of the game, didn't have a striker. They didn't have a proper striker out there. Obviously, Ibrahimovic was back, but wasn't 100%, although he did cause a few problems, especially with balls coming into the box later on, but I felt United dealt with it very well. I thought Henderson made a terrific save from him in the second half. But you could see the impacts of not having Ante Rebic and Rafael Leao on Milan's attack. I think it blunted them quite a bit, really. But listen, United can only beat what's put in front of them. And United have tended to choke in these games in the last couple of years. So it's really good for United to go away from home and go and get that win and keep the clean sheet. It's hugely important. I thought the defence was excellent yesterday. They were, especially in the second half, they were really aggressive. And I said this last week, United's defence seems to be freed up to be so much more aggressive against other teams with Henderson in net as opposed to De Gea, because maybe they're a little less worried he's going to drop a rick. And obviously Henderson's distribution, especially from his throwing, is much better as well. So it gives United an out ball when Henderson picks up the ball.
It brings us on to the next topic, really, staying on the game with Dean Henderson, arguably now first choice for England, should be first choice for Manchester United. And on this podcast, we've spoken at length about whether it's time to throw him in. And I think what we've both said is, well, we're not going to know unless he gets a run of 10 or so games. The thing with Henderson is, and I said it last week, he made a costly mistake in the first leg. And it was something that I wanted to see him bounce back from. He did that and more. The chance last night that Zlatan had in the second half, that was buried into the back of the net. That was the type of goal that Zlatan scores regularly, and he put a strong arm to it, kept it out, and kept United in the draw. You could say. But Mike, going into the weekend, David De Gea will have more training sessions under his belt. He's back with the team now. He was there last night in Milan. What does Solskjaer do before the international break? Because he has said on record that the place will be Henderson's until then. But I would argue that it should be Henderson's between now and the end of the season at the very least.
Yeah, I agree. And I've been very open that he needs a run of many games in a row to really build a relationship with the defenders and settle into the team, understand the pattern of play and whatnot. And also De Gea's consistent errors over the last 2.5 years have really don't really warrant him getting a place in the team. So what Solskjaer does is do what he's been doing for the last 2 weeks, which is put Dean Henderson in goal. That's all he needs to do. It's very, very simple. I think certainly his first choice for England. That's almost more certain for me than it seems to be for United right now, because Jordan Pickford I mean, you've got to be joking, haven't you? There's no way he's as good. He's not as good as Dean Henderson. You don't see Dean Henderson doing the crazy stuff that Pickford does. So I think for me, Henderson should be first choice of club and country, certainly till the end of the season. And then we can sort of look back and review everything, see where we are. But like I said a couple of minutes ago, the defence looks so much more assured and enabled to go and be aggressive and proactive with Henderson in it than they have been with De Gea.
The way in which Milan approached the game, and I suppose you look at their starting lineup, were you surprised by how poor they were? In the first leg, I thought they kind of threatened us a little bit more, and there was a little bit more fear for going into the game last night that we wouldn't have it all our own way. But we controlled the game throughout, I would argue.
I wouldn't agree about the first half, Dale. United were very passive in the first half. I don't think we controlled the game, and Milan looked like they were more likely to score in the first half than United did. The second half, United controlled the game. Absolutely. But I think Milan's absentees really probably got the better of them. Those are some real big absentees for them to lose up front. You don't have a recognised striker. No Mandzukic available. No Rafael Leao. No Ante Rebic, who's a huge player for them. And also they were missing arguably their best centre-half in Romagnoli as well. But like I said, it doesn't matter. United had to beat what was in front of them. And listen, United have come up against worse teams than that Milan team this season and been considerably worse. So I think it was important for United psychologically to get over the line. I wasn't that surprised at Milan being that poor because United tends to be better away from home in these kind of situations. So it didn't surprise me at all, Dale.
Yeah, I think with that United being better from home, what I was kind of more worried about was we didn't do enough in the first leg and we were leaving it all into the very big away game. And the fears of that going into the game, I was thinking last night that this is arguably our biggest game of the season. And it was a big win. It was a huge win. It felt like our biggest game of the season. It felt like something important. And it's not. We've been in Europa League campaigns in the past, and I don't think that's always the case when you played in this competition. You kind of take each round as they come, and you hop over it, and you get into the next one. But there's something about drawing a side or a club like AC Milan that I guess adds to the romance of being in maybe a second-rate competition. It kind of makes it feel a bit more important. Do you get that, Mike? Do you get when we got AC Milan right, these are two big clubs, rather than saying drawing, I don't know, Granada, who we could get in the quarterfinals?
Well, I mean, we've pretty much just knocked the other main big team out of the competition, Dale. If you look at who's left in the draw, you'd say the next biggest team left in the draw in terms of big clubs. You look at Roma, Ajax, Arsenal. Those are the only really other big punchers left in the draw, and there's no reason United shouldn't be beating any of those teams, really. Especially when you look at the discrepancy in investment and budget that United have got compared to those teams. So that is what I said when we were previewing this game on Monday. I said this was a hugely important game for both teams in relation to this competition because I felt both teams would have looked at that and thought, if we can knock off the other team, that really opens what we can see a clear visual route for us to the final in Gdansk in May, with maybe a slight possibility of crowds. No guarantees, of course, but huge result for United, and they needed it. This was United needed to start off this week well, because this is a big week for the manager as well as the players, especially in light of his comments about winning trophies this week.
Okay, we need to get onto that, don't we? We need to get on. While I share my thoughts, can you try and get up his precise comments? Because the thing about that press conference was he answered a question, and I actually think that he clearly didn't answer it the way he wanted to, because he goes on later in that press conference and he speaks about the significance of winning trophies. When he said that, I think he was making a point and probably didn't word it very well, but the point stands. And I think Owen Hargreaves got onto it last night on BT Sport, that, yeah, a lot of managers use winning trophies as an ego trick because a lot of trophies at cup competitions, we'll say, can be won on a win.
He's contradicting. He's basically having a dig at himself 2 years ago, Dale, when he took a dig at Pochettino for only finishing in the top four and not winning trophies, which is exactly what he did a couple of years ago. So that directly conflicts with what he said 2 years ago. And I think it would create some cynicism amongst some United fans, certainly me, that makes you think, wow, it's just like Joel Glazer piped those words into his ears.
Have you got the quotes? Have you got what he said in front of you?
Yeah, so I've just got it up now. He said that I've been here for 2.5 years, and coming in, I've said many times, I felt a big rebuild had to be made. In the league position, you see, if there's any progress for me, that's always the bread and butter of the season. You see how capable you are of coping with ups and downs. Any cup competition can give you a trophy, but it's more of an ego thing from other managers and clubs to finally win something, which pretty much directly contradicts what he said a couple of years ago when he first came in to the job. But we need progress, and if we need to perform well enough, the trophies will end up at the club again. It's not like a trophy will say that we're back. No, it's a gradual progression of being in and around the top league. And the consistency and odd trophies, sometimes a cup competition can hide the fact that you're still struggling a bit. I kind of understand some of where he's coming from, but that does sound like the priority for United is to just finish in the top four every season and not doing anything else. That's what that sounds like to me.
Well, I think what he's speaking about is he wants to see progress in the league, which is our bread and butter. Bread and butter is the league every season. You want to do well in the league. And the other things, they just come part of it, you would think. This season and last season, you could not throw it on Solskjaer that we don't care about cup competitions, because we're going out and we're trying.
His comment suggests that Alex Ferguson wanting to win trophies even when United couldn't win the league. Was that an ego thing then for Alex Ferguson?
Well, no, it wasn't, because what he is saying is we're in the process of a transition, and we're getting better, which I think we've seen. I think at the end of the season we want to prove that. I feel to prove that we would need to win trophies. I don't agree with what Solskjaer, the quote that you're saying, but he's making a point that a lot of managers win cup competitions, but the bread and butter for Manchester United is to win the league. It's to be back on top of English football. But at the end of the day, Solskjaer needs a trophy because he's not going to win the league this season. So second place, really, we should be achieving second place. That shouldn't be a problem. Looking at the Europa League now, we're going to get onto it shortly and before we wrap it up and talk about the draw today and who we want. But looking at the teams left in that, there's no one I fear. No one I fear.
Can I just pull up what he said back in January 2019, where he said, here you go. This is what he said about, this is sort of the highlights of when he was asked about, because Pochettino said exactly this, what Solskjaer said this week about trophies just being a build-up for the ego. This is what Pochettino said this a couple of years ago. And Solskjaer was asked to respond to this in press conference in January 2019. So at this point, he's still the interim. He was still the interim, wasn't he, at this point? I'm not... no, he would have been the permanent manager. Would he been interim.
What interim?
Yeah. I don't know. It's been a long 12 months. I'm not here to discuss what Pochettino says and what other managers say, but we are about winning trophies. Of course we are. We can't win the league this year. We're still in the cup. We're going to try and win the FA Cup. If you win trophies, that's a fantastic day for everyone in the club. The best time of your life is that day when you win, because you never know when the next one's going to come. I am just saying that we here at this club are looking to win trophies. I mean, that's almost the polar opposite of what he said here this week.
Yeah, I think as well, if you're going to go through, look, I've said it before about Pochettino, and it never really bothered me coming up in conversation when people are saying, well, he never won a trophy. How could you say that he should manage Manchester United?
No, I think we both agreed on that because of his comparative lack of resources to the other teams around him in terms of the backing. The job he did was a minor miracle, and I would argue Spurs have been worse since he's gone. Yeah. Mourinho has been worse than Pochettino.
And I could have told Spurs that before they made that decision.
But, they could have saved themselves some money by just making the changes to personnel that Pochettino asked for, rather than letting him because he wanted to overhaul the squad even before that season where they got to the Champions League final. He wanted to completely overhaul the squad, and they just weren't interested.
The big difference here, though, between Solskjaer and Pochettino. Okay, Solskjaer's in his second season in charge. A trophy is expected now, and when you're managing Manchester United, you're managing Spurs. I think, Pochettino right up at Spurs. They weren't expected to win trophies. He brought them to a new level. He brought them to regular Champions League football. He brought them to a Champions League final. That's when trophies started to be demanded. Mourinho's come in, they've gone backwards. But with Solskjaer, can't go 3 years as Manchester United manager without a trophy, I don't feel. And that's what bothered me about those specific comments, because he does go on later in that press conference and say trophies are important. And he said it again last night. He said it again about confidence growing in the dressing room after beating Milan 1-0. But the significance of winning a trophy this season has nothing to do with an ego. The significance of winning a Europa League or an FA Cup this season comes within the squad and getting a taste of success. Because what this team lacks for me is we've seen it some weeks this season where we've been really, really good. Really, really good football. And then for 5 weeks after, it's dreadful. It's really bad.
Yeah, it's putting in the performances and getting the results when it really, really counts.
Yeah,
in really crunch pressure situations, and I don't think United have done that under Solskjaer. No. Really, I don't think they've done that. They can pull a performance. They pull a performance out. I've noticed when it seems like the speculation over Solskjaer reaches kind of a fever pitch, then United seem to pull out a performance. So that was. I thought I had a little bit of that in my head when we beat City recently. It was like if United had lost that game to City and lost as badly as I thought we would, I mean, that would have just speculation would have just gone. People would have been going, why did United just hire Pochettino when he was available? That's what would have happened. So yeah, they need to, especially with losing three semi-finals in a row and then losing that League Cup semi-final to City as well in the season. It's not a good look. So United really needed to. 4 semi-finals because it was played over one leg. The Carabao Cup semi-final this year. So United really needed to. They needed to win this game, and they need to win one of these two competitions this year, as well as finish second. Because otherwise, it'll, like I said last week, it'll be like the second that we got under Mourinho, where we finished second, but we were a country mile behind Manchester City, and we didn't win anything. We had that FA Cup final where we were so bad in that cup final against, I think it was against Chelsea, and you almost felt that was the beginning of the end, really, for Mourinho.
No, absolutely. Moving on, we're going to talk about the draw. Manchester United are in the quarterfinals Europa League, as we've been speaking about. Spurs, who we've touched on, are not after last night's absolute disaster. Thrown away at 2 goals.
And Rangers. They're out as well.
And Rangers as well. So, and just on Rangers, okay? Because we're not one of those mainstream media platforms. We're independent. Make sure you follow Strettycast on Spotify and so on. But we never bigged up this Rangers show, okay? Rangers won the SPL this season, and all of a sudden BT Sport, after the last round, they went into this kind of little segment about what teams Manchester United should be looking to avoid. And Jake Humphreys pushed Scholes on whether we should be looking to avoid Rangers. And this is complete crap. There's a lot of teams that are left in that draw will be rubbing their hands at the draw of Rangers. Don't be daft.
I think I mentioned them as a team that worried me, not because I didn't think United could beat them, but I just thought if United went into one of those games against Rangers half cooked, and Steven Gerrard would have really wanted to beat United, then that could be really embarrassing. That's why Rangers worried me as a draw. Not because I don't think we're capable of beating them, because I think we are.
I don't think the lads would let that happen. Rangers, they would have been well riled up for that. I actually wanted Rangers in the previous round, but I was happy with AC Milan. And with that, you won't be shocked to hear who I want in the next round, Mike. But is there any teams of the 7 possible that jump out at you as a tasty tie?
So I think I don't really want Arsenal because those domestic ties in European games tend to be really poor, and it's just not what I want. And plus, the 2 games that we played against Arsenal this season were so awful. I really don't want to have to watch us play them again because they were awful matches. Both of them were awful. So I don't want to have to sit and watch that again. I think if we got Roma, that would be a really good tie. I think you get 2 very good games out of Roma. And I also think United can beat them. I don't think Roma are as good a side as Milan. United. Look at the teams left in the straw. You got Ajax, Dinamo Zagreb, Granada, Slavia Prague, Villarreal. You should be beating all of these teams, Dale. So for me, I think in terms of a really good game, I would like Roma because I think it'd be a good tie. But in terms of does anyone worry me? No. It'd be more of a case of United beating themselves.
Yeah. No. Looking at the teams left in it, I'm going to say it's a pretty poor latter stage of the Europa League because I don't see any team there that I think will trouble us. Like Seville are usually that kind of banana skin left in the Europa League, but they're not in it this year. The team that jumps out to me, Mike, who I want in the round or draw this morning, is Ajax, for the sheer reason of the romance of the tie. We had that in the last round with AC Milan. And when you're in the Europa League, I kind of said it, that it's nice to get a big draw because, look, I fancy us beating all the remaining teams in it. It's a good trip. It's a good stadium for the players to play at. Good surface. And I know there's easier draws in it, but the thing is, it's staying up. Those late games, working for those late games in the Europa League that kick off at 8 o'clock. Sometimes when the opposition isn't too attractive, that can be tough. It can be almost sleep-inducing.
I think without the fans, it doesn't quite have the same feeling of glamour about it, I have to say. And obviously this Ajax team, certainly not a bad team, but it's not quite at the level of the Ajax team a couple of years ago, the one that went to the Champions League semi-final. They've been shorn of a few players, but they still have some good players. People like David Neres, Dusan Tadic is there. Got a young player called Anthony, who's a very good young forward. So there's some good players there. But I personally would still prefer Roma. I actually feel that feels like a bigger tie.
Yeah, look, there's loads of ones in that would be good. Roma would be a big tie. I think Villarreal wouldn't be a bad one either. Bringing back Eric Bailly, of course, Ajax, Donny van de Beek. Yeah, that's kind of it. You can't really say too much about the Europa League draw until it's made. We'll probably be doing another show on that later on in the weekend. But yeah, we'll see how that goes. Make sure you check out the blog for coverage of that draw after this podcast on strettynews.com. And again, another mention for the podcast, Strettycast. We need more subscribers. Make sure you get over to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or whatever platform you use, as well as YouTube. You can follow or subscribe to Stretty News TV. Moving on, we need to speak about Paul Pogba. We need to speak about Paul Pogba, Mike, because Paul Pogba, as we said, gets lots of criticism on this podcast, but I won't criticism when he does good, when he plays well, and when he deserves criticism. He came back last night, came back with a bang, impact off the bench, goal after a few minutes, and not only that, throughout the game, it was the kind of performance that I think when you think of Pogba, it's what you want to see. You want to see players dragging out of him. They can't get anywhere near. Milan couldn't get anywhere near Pogba. That's what we wanted to see, wasn't it, Mike?
Yeah, very much so. Pogba is what you would call a press-resistant player. So he's someone that he's quite hard to actually, when a team tries to obviously press the opposition, it's kind of hard with him because his vision for passing is very good. And in the way he reads the game is actually very good. So he's able to see a pass really even before the other team starts pressing it. And also his ability to carry the ball, his dribbling is excellent. His technique it's almost like the ball is glued to his foot when he can run forward sometimes. The way he kind of, as you mentioned there, just sort of drags the ball around in between his feet. And it almost makes you tear your hair out in frustration when he goes and has that second half that he did, because he changed that game. He completely changed the complexion of the game when he came on. Suddenly, everything opened up because Bruno Fernandes looked shattered in that first half. He was really struggling to get in that game. His passing radar was off. Wasn't helped by the fact that United players weren't committing themselves to get in the box more. But having Pogba there, and it is why I think you may have mentioned this actually on Monday, is that United maybe should be looking to a McTominay and Pogba partnership behind Fernandes going forward for the rest of the season, because obviously McTominay can do the closing down and shutting down, but Pogba just links United from back to front so much better. And it means Bruno Fernandes may not have to drop as deep so much to pick up the ball. Bruno Fernandes can stay a little bit further up the field. I mean, has he got 23 goals, I think, this year, Fernandes, or something like that? He's scored a lot of goals. So you kind of think you want him further up the pitch at all times and allow Pogba just be a little deeper and just thread everything together a little bit more and join things up. So the difference he made was the such composure as well in that goal, Dale, because it was a tight spot. You got bodies, legs flying around in that area, and he just finds that little space to just smack the ball into the net. Which someone will say, well, he's like 4 yards out. Yeah, but when you've got everyone's flying, the amount of times I've seen players miss those in those situations or just hit it straight at the goalkeeper or an opposition player because they kind of panic. All the players flying in around them and bodies in the box. Then there's Milan players practically in the goal as he hits that. It really made such a difference, and he could be a big difference maker. If he stays fit between now and the end of the season, United will 100% finish second in the league, and it gives United a real shot of winning a trophy. Because I think weirdly, obviously Pogba, he had, by the sounds of it, he had what they call long COVID. So the effects of COVID seem to be with him for several months after apparently he'd had it. In terms of like his, he was struggling with his breathing, his cardiovascular fitness was a mess, which may go some way to explaining why he was so sluggish in certain games. But it was something that he said that it had an impact on him even a couple of months after it apparently cleared up. And then him being injured for a few weeks. So it's almost like he's almost coming in. He's kind of fresh, if that makes sense. He's got less mileage on the clock than some of the other players this season. So a fantastic opportunity now for United. He can really knit things together. And we've obviously Rashford picking up another niggle last night and not being quite 100%. United need somebody else coming in right now and supporting Bruno Fernandes and the quite sterling work Luke Shaw is doing up and down that left flank.
Yeah, no, Pogba made a huge difference last night. It was Rolls Royce in the pitch, touch of class whenever he was on the ball. But Rashford, I thought, it didn't surprise me to see him come off at half time. He's not right. He's not 100%.
No, nowhere close. No.
He's really not. And to be honest, I'm beginning to worry a little bit about Rashford, and it's long-term worries because he suffered this really bad injury last season, which he came back from. And since then, he's had this shoulder problem, which he's played on with. Finally, he's still getting by. He's still scoring goals. But there's a European Championship coming up this summer, and Rashford needs surgery. Now, the problem I have is that they're waiting until after the European Championships to give him that surgery, okay? And that means that he's going to miss a start next season. I want to know how long he's going to miss of next season, because the longer we're putting this on and playing him through injury, I'm sorry, that can't be good. That can't be good. No,
I just wonder, Solskjaer was saying that both Cavani and Martial are going to be back imminently. I think Martial particularly will be, obviously I'm not a huge fan of his, but it'd be good to have him back because you can maybe just take Rashford out for 4 or 5 games and pop Martial in on that left-hand side to sort of replace to replace Rashford, really, because Yeah, I don't think. I don't think. I mean, I don't think the Euro should even be going ahead. It's just so stinks of money grabbing by UEFA for this competition to be going ahead. Should not be going ahead. The players across the board are going to be knackered. You're going to have next season. I reckon all of the first half of next season is going to be disrupted by injuries, and then the year after that, you've got this World Cup, which expanded World Cup, by the way, which is going to cut in straight through the middle of the season. I think it's absolutely ridiculous, Dale, that this is going ahead. And I think United need to maybe think about unilaterally just pulling Martial out of the England setup and allowing him to go and get surgery and actually get a rest over the summer. England aren't going to win the Euros anyway, so who gives a shit? He's not missing anything.
Yeah, no, I do think about these international.
Like, give a toss about England.
No, I do. Look, the internationals, especially during the season, these ones coming up, are a complete joke. Because
it's money grabbing. It's shameless money grabbing by UEFA and the national associations. They have no concern for the welfare of the players who are already struggling. Look at the volume. I don't ever remember seeing a volume of injuries amongst teams that I've seen this season. I mean, it really says something when it's absolutely ridiculous. And why is this? This should not be going ahead. And also, you've got the travel issues as well. I mean, I know that we've got vaccines being rolled out now, but I mean, let's be honest, Dale. Realistically, there isn't going to be any even small to mid-scale, kind of mid-scale traveling around, probably for the rest of the year. I mean, realistically, certainly not international travel. I think there's no way. There may be some small scale, but there won't be anything more. So, I mean, what kind of crowds are you going to have at these Euros? And then how much is it going to cost for the actual, look at the clubs or the associations whose stadiums are hosting games. How much is it costing them to host a game that doesn't have full capacity? This is something that was spoken about earlier in the season when they kind of test run having, I think, 3,000 or 4,000 fans in grounds for games, and the amount it would have actually cost United even more money to have 3,000 or 4,000 fans in the ground than to have no fans in because of all the logistical element, policing, all of this stuff that clubs have to. I think it's a disgrace, frankly, that this competition is even going ahead. It just shouldn't be happening, and. The fact that we're even having these internationals, what's the point of these internationals? Are they just friendlies? What's going on here? Why have you got a bunch of friendlies in March?
World Cup qualifiers.
Mate, in March.
No, but the thing is, it's a joke because you're talking about World Cup qualifiers, the European Championship starting in a few months, and it's all being crammed in. You're talking about next season players having more injuries. They're going to be all burnt out, and looking at Rashford playing the past few months with knocks and not being 100%, I'm not sure about that. Look, at the end of the day, I'm also not sure.
What happens to someone like Maguire, who's played up pretty much every game this season, Dale? What happens to him? You just get this horrible feeling. Someone like Maguire is just going to be completely exhausted, come the beginning of next season. Or you look at Fernandes, he's already starting to look tired, and then you have these Euros, and then suddenly what's going on?
I want to be blunt about this because football is a tough industry, and managers get fired, they don't get results. Whose job is it to worry about players being burnt out? Because the reason I ask it because Rashford has two managers, doesn't he? He's top player. He's got Solskjaer. He's got Gareth Southgate, and both of them want him playing for their teams. Okay, so they're not worried about him burning out. They just want him playing every game. Who is it to stand in? Is it Rashford to put my hand up and say, look, I need a breather? Because I don't expect Solskjaer to basically risk losing games by leaving out his best player, unless that player puts his hand up and says, I'm too tired, I need a rest. And this
is the thing. Story. What is Rashford bringing to the table in this state at the moment, Dale? He's not really bringing anything because he's not capable of really being able to push himself. And it's better to have him not there. You know, I mean, he's a fantastic player, but look at England's options. Like, they can go without Dale. They can go without
Raheem Sterling, Harry Kane,
Jadon Sancho, Dominic
Jack
Calvert-Lewin, Grealish. You've
Bamford.
Come on. England aren't. You know, they've got plenty of options there. So I just think this is crazy.
So moving on, before we get to question time, which I think is everyone's favourite on the podcast at the moment, we're going to look at the quarterfinals of the FA Cup. That's the next game before the international break. Manchester United take on Leicester City away from home. Leicester have been very good in the league the past few years. You know, after winning the title, they didn't really suffer a downslide. They've stayed thereabouts. Arguably, as we said before, probably a better team now under Rodgers. So this is their opportunity to win a trophy, Mike. They've never won the FA Cup. They never won the Premier League before they did that either. You know, so these things have to come to an end, I guess. But for us, we're hungry for success, and I don't see why we shouldn't be going for 2 trophies. You know, people are probably focused about this comment about egos and managers, but Manchester United are in a good position right now, and beat Leicester, and they're beating one of the best teams in the competition.
Yeah, absolutely. You look at the remaining teams left in the draw. Obviously, Chelsea's still in there. Good side. Played Sheffield United, so Chelsea will be in the semi-finals. You've got Bournemouth and Southampton playing each other. I think there's the early kickoff, and then you've got Everton and Man City as well. So that's not hugely as cut and dry as I would have thought. Obviously, they're talking about the quadruple with City. I still wouldn't be hugely surprised if maybe Guardiola rested a few players for that Everton game. Like if I was him, I would, because it's like, what does he want to win more? Does he want to put his players through the FA Cup, or does he want to win the Champions League? I think he wants to win the Champions League more. So again, for United and Leicester, this is one of those things where you think it's sort of a clear path that you can see to the final, right? When you if they can get through, if either one of them can get through this one. Leicester are a good side. They've got a few injuries right now. Now Rodgers has adjusted to that quite well with the tactical tinkering that he's made to try and get the best out of the available personnel he's got, and he's done very well with that. But again, United needs to go and try and win this game. It's so important. If United can win this, and suddenly United doing an FA Cup semi-final, got Europa League quarter-final, and United will also know with the Europa League when the draw's made today, United are going to know exactly what the route is to get to the final, because it's a quarter and semi-finals that are drawn today. So United are going to see the whole draw laid out in front of them, which I think could help preparation-wise. So this will be huge, and I think it'll just maybe suddenly United in these late stages of these competitions, second in the league, just might pep a few of those players up a bit who've maybe been flagging a bit, and just give a bit of a reminder of, hey, you're at a big club here. This running really, really means something. There's more than just top 4 on the line here. Yeah.
No, definitely. We need a trophy. I keep saying it. We need a trophy. Soldiers need a trophy. This is another good opportunity to do that. I was nervy coming into this week ahead of the 2 cup games. Obviously, we've got over the hurdle with AC Milan, and kind of going off what Solskjaer said last night, and confidence is kind of building within me as well ahead of this game. Since the turn of the year, very topsy-turvy. We've been up and down. We get a good result, and then we're only a corner away from another bad result. So look, United need to get over the line this weekend, and just to be in that hunt for trophies, in the hunt for success. We were in the hunt last year. It was Solskjaer's first full year, but we weren't there long enough, and we need to go that extra step now and finally clinch something. It's been too long. That moves us on to question time. If you're watching live, which a lot of you are, use whatever platform, YouTube, Periscope, and Facebook to ask a comment in the comment section, and we'll read a few of them out. There's a few more we've got from our Facebook community as well. Going with the first one, Mike, it's one on Cavani. So Cavani again was withdrawn from the squad during the week. I'm a big fan of Cavani, but I'm getting a bit impatient with the lack of football he's playing and the amount of times he's been, I guess, out injured. Have you any concerns about that?
Yeah, hugely. I said it was either Monday or it was Friday that if United went into next season with the same attackers as they have this season and Cavani as the main frontline striker, we got big problems, huge problems actually. I think this should really speed up the necessity of United going out and getting a striker this summer. And I think if this is going to be an issue, I don't think United should be looking to extend his contract. But they'll have to sit down and see how much he really wants it, because, yeah, it's a real concern now. I mean, 10 to 12 weeks. That's not good. That's really not good. You know, you don't want to say it's definitely over. Obviously, I look at someone like Zlatan Ibrahimovic, even though it was really satisfying to knock him out of that competition because he has his head up his own ass all the time. You know, he got a really bad knee injury when he was 35, 36, and still managed to come back and compete at the top level, which is a huge credit to him. And I've seen nothing of Cavani that suggests that he isn't anything but a really top professional who looks after himself. But this is a real problem for United, and I think, like I said, it should really focus United's mind of getting a top quality frontline striker in the summer.
I'm going to put a bit of pressure on Cavani's shoulders, because we've said it a number of times about how he looks after himself, how he's a great professional. He's got a few months to prove that to me now, because although he's been brilliant, he's performed in most of the games that he's played in. I think now it's the business end of the season, and he's missed a lot of football. And when he plays now, I want to see a big impact. I want to see him lead the way. I want to see him guide us to a trophy or two this season. And if he doesn't do that, I think I look back at his time at the club this year a little bit disappointed, because not enough football. If you get what I'm saying, I'm happy with his performances. As things stand, I'm very happy with the way he's played. I'm happy with the impact that he's going to have on some of the young players at the club, Mason Greenwood, Rashford, and hopefully Martial too, which we'll wait to see. But not enough football. Not enough football.
Missed 7 of the last 8 games. That's, at this point of the season, that's a real problem.
It is exactly, and he was signed for a reason. He was, because we needed a world-class striker. That's what was available, and then to kind of, if we knew how much football that he would have missed out on this season. Hindsight's a great thing. You'd wonder if they would have went down that route. A lot of people on Facebook, not on the button that comes up here, but on the private group that we run, want to ask basically, Pogba, keep or sell? That was the most popular question last night, Mike. Pogba, keep or sell? Where are we standing right now? Well, I'll go first. Pogba's in a bit of a situation right now, because any footballer who's worth millions, mega money, their kind of plans to move around Europe right now are, I don't know, up in the air with the pandemic, because clubs haven't got the money that it will take to sign them. Now, Pogba could run down his deal, of course, but I'm not sure. I'm really not sure. I'd rather keep him if he wants to stay and he realizes that he's not going to get the move to Real Madrid, and he sits down and says, right, I'm going to sort my act out. I guess keep him, because I don't trust the club really to let him go and to find an adequate replacement. We've seen it so many times in the past where top players or good players have left Man United and we haven't replaced them. And I'm talking about Cristiano Ronaldo, because Paul Pogba was signed as one of those marquee players and to kind of bring that X factor to Manchester United. Although he hasn't done it, if we were to sell him, I would still expect a player of that caliber to replace him.
It all depends really on whether he'd be willing to sign a new contract. If he's willing to sign a new contract, then yeah, keep him. But if he's not, they need to sell him. They need to get the money that they can get in for him, because you cannot be letting him run his contract down.
No, you can't.
I mean, it makes the club look even more pathetic than it has looked in how it has dealt with Pogba in the last 2 years. So they can't afford to do that. So if he's not going to sign a new contract, it all depends on whether he's going to sign a new deal. I think if he's willing to sit down and talk about and sign a new deal, get him signed up, because it's just a position that we won't have to worry about when we've got other areas that urgently need addressing. But especially with the Haaland release clause situation that crops up, I believe some point next year, I think, like a €65 million release clause. But if he's not going to sign a new deal, they have to cash in. The problem is, even with a year left on his deal, I still think he'd cost 60 million. We won't recoup the money that we pay for him, but he would still be a lot of money. And you look, the two clubs that have been mainly in for him, the two, and then like a third one that's sort of been mentioned briefly, but Real Madrid, who even with this apparently a bit of Saudi investment, still have a situation with a squad where they need to get players off their books. And obviously, whether central midfield will be the biggest priority when you've got Sergio Ramos, looks like he's on the way out, which is why they're trying to sign David Alaba. They need a new frontline striker as well, which may be an even bigger priority than a midfielder for them. But they need to get players off their books. They've got Jovic, who's been not worked out. He's back at Eintracht Frankfurt on loan. Eden Hazard has been a flop. Can't even stay fit. Just
he's
shocking injury
problems. Awful.
Well, he showed up several stone overweight, which is appalling for a professional footballer, Dale. You get this big move of your career and you show up 4 stone overweight. That's disgraceful. No, it's we laugh about it, Dale, but that's not good enough. That's not good enough. You've got this move to Real Madrid. Honestly, easy to say me not being a professional footballer, but I think I would have just taken a 1 week's holiday, and then I would have been training and getting ready to get to Real Madrid pre-season, top shape. Let's go and hit this ground running. And he was their marquee signing, and that's not worked. They've signed some young players who show some promise, but it's not worked. But then you've got like Isco, who they're trying to get rid of. Asensio's not worked out. I mean, Gombacello's still there, stealing a living, the most overrated footballer I've ever seen. How that guy was ever considered a world-class fullback, I have no idea. Rubbish. And he's the vice-captain. Tony Cruz, he's only 31, but you watch him in some games and it's like, man, he's not aged well. He looks much older when you watch him play. And then you got Casemiro, can't stay fit. Luka Modric, brilliant, but he's 35 years old. So they got problems. And then Juve have got problems of their own with this. If Juve wanted to get Pogba in, they'd have to get Ronaldo out.
I think Juve are going to go for Haaland.
Okay, that'd be interesting. But they'd still have to get Ronaldo out if they were going to go for Haaland. There's no question they'd have to get him out of the club. And I'm like, Ronaldo, who are the takers on Ronaldo right now? Because I don't think United will go for him, nor should they go for him because of his age. And also the fact is, I'm not sure he's going to bring quite enough to the table in terms of what we need right now. So, and the other one will be PSG, but I think PSG's focuses are on tying down Neymar and Mbappe to long-term deals, which seems to be their focus right now. Mbappe's contract runs out at the end of next season, and Neymar's contract is running down quite soon as well. So, by all accounts, their focus is on tying those players down. And I think Pochettino will probably prioritise shoring up his defence a bit, I think, more than anything else.
Interesting. Another question in from Brian Tyrrell. Again, kind of touches on what we spoke about at the start of the podcast. Is Henderson a better choice than David De Gea? As things stand, Mike, yes or no?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm going to go
all the reasons
yes.
We've touched on for the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's one more question on Henderson, which I'll jump to before we go to other bits. Dean Henderson's performance last night, a decent response for a number one after a minor setback from a week ago. We spoke about that, and it's exactly that was my reaction to Henderson's mistake, was not to criticize him because I think he's a good goalkeeper with promise, was to basically ask for a response, and that's what a top goalkeeper does. And we've had 2 or 3 years with De Gea in which we've seen a few mistakes, and I don't think he's ever been able to get beyond that World Cup. Mike, in 2018 with Spain when it went bad. And I think
not the only Spanish player who struggled to get beyond that World Cup either.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I think, yes, Henderson's our first choice now till the end of the season. At the very least, he has then to prove himself. And I tell you, last night was a good audition. Last night against AC Milan was a really good audition.
Absolutely. It speaks a lot to his confidence and his self-belief that he was able to recover from that mistake so quickly and then go out a week later against the same team and produce that performance.
Well, you see, the thing is, right, and I mentioned, I think it was last week, the goalkeepers are going to make mistakes. You're not going to get a goalkeeper that's not going to make a mistake. So for me,
I mentioned Edison. I mentioned Edison. You know, he is an outstanding goalkeeper, but he does make the odd mistake. Alisson has been an outstanding goalkeeper for the last few years. He makes the odd mistake. I remember Edwin van der Sar used to make a couple of mistakes, but man, Edwin van der Sar was worth his weight in gold. Like, you take the odd mistake every now and then from Edwin van der Sar because, man, he was such a difference maker for United's defence. I mean, it was just unreal. It was, you know, he's one of the best goalkeepers that I'd ever seen. Everything that he was able to do, the ball at his feet, distribution, the way he commanded his box, he was outstanding. Peter Schmeichel used to make a few mistakes. People forget this now, but he did because he was completely mental. So he used to make the odd mistake. But you took that with Schmeichel because what he brought to the team was invaluable, and big match performances from Peter Schmeichel. You know, I think one that springs to mind was the 1-0 win away at Newcastle in '96, where he was just like an octopus. He was just like, just seemingly finding limbs from places you didn't even know and making saves. What was against a very good Newcastle attack that I think consisted of you had Ginola, Les Ferdinand in that really, really good team. And, you know, he saved our bacon that day. So you saw that with Henderson last night. It was a game-making performance. And what's impressive about Henderson, you've seen him in spells in games. He's really not had much to do. But then when he has, I mentioned Crystal Palace, he had virtually nothing to do until right near the end, where Palace could have won the game. But he produced a very good save. A save that, you know, all based on his positioning, really, and his anticipation to get in the right spot to make the save, which is 90% of what you need to do as a goalkeeper, is being in the right place. It's not simply just a case of flashy reflexes. Most of the goalkeepers, the best goalkeepers, won't make those flashy saves. It's all based on their anticipation and their positioning. And by the way, you saw that with Donnarumma. I thought in the first half, did you notice? I think a ball went over the top down United's right-hand side for James to chase, about 35 yards out from the Milan goal near the touchline. And Donnarumma just comes out all the way out of his goal, as cool as you like. He swept up the ball away from James and then just pinged it back into the United half. And I thought, oh, that's quite impressive. That's good goalkeeping. And you said 2 very, very good goalkeepers on display last night.
Absolutely, Mike. Just before we get to our final 2 questions, and one of them is a tongue-in-cheek entry, I just want to announce that we have 99 likes for this live stream on Facebook. Let's get to 100 before we finish in the next 5 minutes. So get liking, right? The likes really.
Yeah, and I'm not resetting up a Facebook account just to get the 100th like. So one of you lot needs to pull your fingers out of your asses.
And look, we've actually got a lovely comment in. We've never, I can safely say, we've never received a comment like this since we started doing the podcast. I don't know who it's aimed at. But Mike, take a look at this. You're muted.
Thank you, whoever you are. That comment more disturbs me than makes me feel good, to be quite honest.
Yeah, same. Likewise. Right, so
is he suggesting a threesome? Is that what he's suggesting?
I don't know. He wants to join us in the podcast, I think. Mike, the tongue-in-cheek comment we were asked, it's something that pops up after a big result and a bad result, and from 2 sections of the support. So it's the same phrase that people use, Ollie out, right? So we've got someone now today, Matt Henderson, who's a big Ollie fan, and he's squeezing this comment in to boil a bit of piss, can I say? Ollie out, Ollie in. We got a pause.
If he's a regular listener to this podcast, as I suspect he is from what you just said, that comment may well be aimed at me. So,
yeah, it's probably, look, I can't say right now whether Ollie in because the season hasn't ended, right? And I've said it before. I think he needs to win a trophy. I've been a massive supporter of Solskjaer. I still very much am. I think he's done a great job to date. But it won't be a great job if he ends this season without a trophy. It's the second season in charge. I demand a trophy. We want to be fighting up front, and we've got a great chance to win the Europa League. We've got a great chance to win the Europa League.
We'll be able to really gauge it at the end of the season.
If
we've got trophies
definitely
to go with second place, because I think we're talking about this new deal for Solskjaer last week. That seems to have dried up a little bit this week with that talk, and hopefully they hold off on that until the end of the season. Got to be sensible on this one. Hold off on that until the season. If everything looks good, maybe give him another 2 years to add to the year now. No, they should not sign Neymar. I've just seen that question just pop up. No, you know what, Dale? His deal comes up, I think, at the end of next season, I think. And if you were to offer me Neymar at the right price, I'd take him 100%. Don't say you wouldn't have him either, because
I hate him. I hate him. Hates him.
Right.
Drives me fucking mad.
He doesn't drive me as mad as Zlatan Ibrahimovic does.
Really? I love Zlatan.
No, that stuff he said about LeBron last week, criticising for the off-the-pitch, politics work he does. I'm like, he was clearly bitter about the fact he arrived in LA thinking he was going to be the king. And then shortly after he arrives in LA, LeBron shows up from Cleveland, joins the Lakers, and suddenly, everyone's looking at Zlatan going, who is this guy again? Who is this guy? Like, give a shit. Shut up. He's clearly a very embittered man by the fact that knows he will never be looked at in the history of the game in the way of some of his contemporaries are, because he just didn't quite get up to that level of Messi and Ronaldo. Or when he came through, you had Ronaldinho who was around when he first broke through, and he's just. So
hold on.
He's a good player, but he's.
Are you really saying
he really does? He's started.
Are you really saying that you have, I suppose, more acceptance of Neymar than Zlatan? Neymar, who cheats constantly on the pitch, constantly play acting.
I've seen plenty of United players doing that. All players do that now. So let's not be.
Neymar.
Let's not be. And also, Neymar does. No, I tell you what, Dale. You watch PSG in Ligue 1. He just lumps kick every week. It's ridiculous. And you're saying he cheats and stuff. He gets up, he dusts himself down. But this is why he's had a lot of injuries in the last few years. He gets the same treatment that David Silva got. First few years he arrived in the Premier League, and as a result, David Silva had troubles with his ankle that he never quite shook off. He gets lumps kicked out of him. I remember this used to happen to Gabriel Batistuta in Serie A, so much to the point that he struggles to walk now. Batistuta, he was getting kicked that much. Like, he literally struggles to walk. He talks about one time where he literally wet himself in bed because it was too painful for him to get out and literally just walk to the toilet. Now he gets lumps kicked out of him. Listen, does he do my head in sometimes, Neymar? Yes, he does, because he just has one of those faces. But so does Zlatan with his ridiculous ponytail and his top knot and his stupid beard, his stupid Tony Stark facial hair. Do me a favour. Like, come on. And as far as I know, Neymar seems to be one of the... someone may correct me on this, but Neymar seems to be, thankfully, one of the few prominent Brazilian footballers who isn't publicly a supporter of Jair Bolsonaro.
Yeah, there you go. And that's it. Well, that's a big pull factor.
But as a player, you couldn't say you wouldn't have him at United. He's unbelievable.
No, no. I thought more about this down the years and looking at the players that we've signed and signing players because they've got big names. No, you have to sign the right type of player. And Neymar, when I watch, even it actually drives me mad when we've drawn PSG in the Champions League just for the reason I have to fucking watch him for 90 minutes twice.
Yeah. I would say you look how much Barcelona have been worse, certainly in attack, since he left. Like you could see the attack was nowhere near as good when he left. Like you could see.
But they basically done a Manchester United job on it. But when they sold Ronaldo and replaced him with Obertan and Valencia and Michael Owen on a free. You look at Barcelona's business, absolutely crazy. And
Barcelona's is worse than United's because United didn't really spend the money that they got for Ronaldo. If you look at Barcelona, they blew it all on Dembele and Coutinho. And Dembele's not a terrible player. He's a decent player, but he's
and the social media for him.
Yeah, and he's not. But he's not Neymar. And then Coutinho has been a flop again. Not a bad player, but I mean, my God, the wrong player. But I mean, they spent about 250 million, I think, on those two players, which is just like, what are you doing? But that they did. Listen, Barcelona, they did exactly the same thing when they sold Luis Figo. They blew it all on players where you just think, what did they sign that guy for? Like, because they panicked, and that's what happened. So. No, I would take him. I mean, I'd still rather have Mbappe if you're going to go for a PSG player with 1 year left on their deal. But I certainly wouldn't say no to Neymar. But I think United have priorities elsewhere.
Absolutely. So with that, we will wrap it up, Mike. Thanks for joining me again for today's show. It's the first time we've streamed live on Facebook for the Strettycast, and it's been a success. 112 likes now on the stream. We were also live over on Periscope and YouTube, so make sure you check them out. Thanks for everyone who has joined us live. And to those who are listening to us on the recorded podcast, you can also get that on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Acast. Until next week, hopefully we're talking about being in the semi-finals of the FA Cup after knocking out Leicester. We will have more on who we have in the next round of the Europa League as we look forward to that competition unfolding. And during the international break, we'll probably take a bit of a break from the podcast, but I'll make sure to get one up next week early. As for now, I'm going to love you and leave you, especially love you and leave you for those comments in the section. And we'll speak again next week. Bye-bye.